What's up, Taiwan? Good evening. I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has moved one step closer to a trade deal with the United States. The government has announced talks that it is describing as a historic breakthrough. It comes just a week after Taiwan was left out of U.S. President Joe Biden's newly formed Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Under the newly announced U.S.-Taiwan Trade Initiative, representatives from both countries will meet in Washington at the end of June. For more details, TaiwanPlus reporter Rick Lauer spoke with Roy Lee, Senior Deputy Executive Director at the Zhonghua Institution for Economic Research. He began by asking about expectations for the talks.
First of all, I think it is actually a very exciting development because looking back in the last 2 decades, we have a lot of opportunities to have a dialogue or discussion or even negotiations with the United States. But most of the issues covered in those discussions are technical in nature. So this is the first time, as far as I understand, this is the first time that the U.S. Agrees to include forward-looking or regional initiatives as part of the U.S.-Taiwan bilateral discussion. And it is important in both symbolic and substance.
To what extent do you think that these new trade negotiations could be the start of something bigger, for example, joining trade blocs like the CPTPP?
Of course, it facilitates Taiwan's effort in other undertakings, including the CPTPP. It facilitates because the initiative reflects the U.S. support and confidence. And also it reflects kind of the U.S. Credential about Taiwan's credential as a key economic player in the global and regional stage. Right. So it underscores the importance of Taiwan's participation economically.
Taiwan's president has gotten a first-hand experience handling some of the nation's domestically made weapons. President Tsai was seen holding Taiwan's first indigenous rocket launcher on Thursday. The weapon was a Kestrel rocket launcher, which is used to take out tanks. Hundreds of them are deployed throughout Taiwan. The images of the president have captured across the nation amid heightened tensions in the Taiwan Strait. Earlier in the week, China sent 30 planes into Taiwan's air defense zone, the largest incursion since January. Another weapon used in Taiwan that's been in the headlines is the Javelin missile system, which is also being used in Ukraine. The military there says the system has been used to destroy more than 1,000 Russian tanks. And as Jaime Ocon explains, Taiwan has been watching how the weapon is being used on the battlefield.
You're clear to fire! Backblast area's clear!
This is a Javelin missile system. Developed by the United States over 30 years ago, it has become one of the most important weapons in Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion.
The Javelin is really one of the most lethal tank-killing machines on the battlefield. And it really is for multiple reasons. One is it's an anti-tank guided munition that shoots a missile out of it that can penetrate just about any amount of tank armor.
The Javelin's tracking system is known for its so-called fire and forget mechanism, which means that after the trigger is pulled, the missile can automatically fly towards the target and doesn't need anyone to guide it.
No matter where that tank or that helicopter or boat goes, that missile will follow it and will strike it. So it gives a lot of safety to the gunner, which, when you're smaller is very important. So you can run away. It's a fire and forget, as we call it.
The United States has provided more than 5,000 Javelin systems to Ukraine since Russia invaded the country on February 24th. Ukraine's armed forces say that more than 1,000 Russian tanks have been destroyed. It's partially due to the accuracy of the weapon when it locks onto a target. But experts say what makes it more effective is the unique way in which it fires.
So most tanks, almost all tanks in the world, are designed to fight other tanks. And most of their armor is focused around their sides or the front and the back of them. So they have vulnerable points on the tank. And almost all tanks in the world are vulnerable at the top of the tank, but also it has what's called a top attack capability. The Javelin has a special capability to fire out of the weapon system, go high up into the sky and come down, almost like a mortar round, but come down directly on top of the tanks. So it's very scary for the tanks.
With China next door, which claims ownership of Taiwan, the island is closely watching how Ukraine is trying to fend off the invasion from its bigger and more powerful neighbor. Beijing has been stepping up its military pressure on Taiwan in recent years, sending warplanes to patrol areas near its territory. It has not ruled out taking the island by force. Taiwan is taking lessons on how Ukraine is defending itself and how the Javelin has become an integral part of the defense strategy.
And intelligence is a huge part of that. Even like we were talking about in the Javelin, interestingly, it's a heat seeker. So it can attack a helicopter, a tank, a boat.
Taiwan's military has already started test firing at targets on the water, simulating what could be Chinese ships trying to reach the coast. And with 400 Javelin systems set to arrive later this year, Taiwan's military continues to learn from the war in Ukraine, preparing for a conflict that it hopes will never break out. Piper Yu and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
After a 3-year hiatus, Taiwan's biggest book fair, the Taipei International Book Exhibition, has officially opened. It's welcoming local and international publishers, including, for the first time, Ukraine. Louise Watt is there.
I'm here at the World Trade Center in Taipei for the first international book fair here in 3 years. That's because of COVID. Now it's one of Asia's biggest literary events, and before the pandemic it was attracting 500,000 visitors. As you can see, there's already a fairly good turnout so far, given that Taiwan is still going through a huge spike in COVID cases. Demonstrating the importance of this event, the Vice President William Lai turned up for the opening ceremony. Many of the stands around me are international publishers, and France is the guest of honor for this 2022 fair. And there are stands also from Poland, Germany, and the European Union. Now, one of the stands that is expected to attract a lot of attention is Ukraine. And joining me now is Valentina Butenko from Ukraine's national book platform. Now, Valentina, this event is clearly important to you, given that you're here with what's going on back home. Why is it so important?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say it's a huge privilege to be here. Being in Taiwan, given what's going on, isn't what I imagined to be. A few months ago, I was back in Ukraine, hiding from bombs. So this is a really unique opportunity. And, given that, the reason it's so important to be here is because this is a very unique chance for us to bring Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian books, and most importantly, Ukrainian voices into the national stage. Because what Ukraine is facing right now, it's an existential crisis where Russia is seeking to eliminate the very idea of Ukrainians. And Ukraine is our identity. It's preserved through culture. It's preserved through books. The way to preserve that under this current threat is to bring it into the mass consciousness, to bring it into the mass market. Bringing Ukrainian language and culture and books to the world, it's so crucial in the fight about what Ukraine is fighting for today, about our right to exist and our right for our voices to be heard.
Thank you, Valentina. And as well as giving voices a platform here at the book fair, organisers hope that the 6-day event will also give the whole publishing industry a much-needed post-COVID boost. Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus at the Taipei World Trade Center.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with images of the newest work by Bolivian artist Calizaya. She's given Mona Lisa a makeover to look like a Cholita or local indigenous woman. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.